evening and welcome to United Industrial Workers Union Forum for 2018 gubernatorial election. The rules for tonight's forum are as follows. Each candidate may make an opening statement not to exceed 2 minutes. The moderator will pose the first question to the first candidate that's seated based on the assigned seating arrangement. The next question will then be posed at the beginning with the second candidate, and this format will be followed throughout. All questions will be asked by the moderator, and all candidates will have the opportunity to respond to all questions. Audience may write their questions to be passed to the moderator. The candidates will have no more than 2 minutes to respond to the question. A candidate may revisit a question during their closing statement. And because the candidates are seated by teams, they will decide among themselves who will respond to the question and how much time they will take. The timekeeper will announce when time has expired, and due to a variety of titles, all candidates will be addressed as Mr. or Miss. The candidates or the teams may then give a closing statement not to exceed 1 minute. So at this time, we're going to go to the opening statement for team number 1, the Millen Young Bangor team. Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches a todos. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you to the unions for bringing us together once again. My reason for running is very simple. I have served in the legislature for 8 years, and prior to that, I've had extensive experience working in government house and working in the private industry in several places, technology, communications, the sorts, and I know what this territory needs. I am not about St. Thomas, St. John, I am about the entire U.S. Virgin Islands, because as a leader, that's how you have to look at things. It's just as if you were a parent and you have children. You love all of them the same. So while we are elected by district, we have a great responsibility to serve the entire territory. I have spent my time in the legislature in the last 8 years developing proposals and programs for economic development, because money can buy you love, but money can certainly solve a lot of problems. And many of the problems that are facing the Virgin Islands has to do with the lack of money. We have one pie, testing. We have one pie, and if we keep dividing this pie with a little bit of money that we get, we just are not gonna get to all of our bills. So I am about economic development, and throughout the night I will tell you more about those programs. I am just so pleased to be before you today. Thank you so much for your attention.
Good evening, Edgar Bengoa, vying for Lieutenant Governor with my candidate, Jeanette Millen Young. Buenas noches a todos. As people may know, I was born in the Dominican Republic, but I moved to the Virgin Islands at a very early age, and my grassroots are in the Virgin Islands. My parents have businesses in St. Thomas from the 1970s. And in the early or late 80s, we bought another store downtown Main Street called the Green Corner Store, which is an icon and landmark.
It's 2 minutes per team. Diasi Cofield Nicholson.
Yes, good night, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm Soraya Diasi-Kofelt with my running mate, Dwight Nicholson. We're number 3 on the ballot. Our slogan is putting the people first. It's not just a campaign slogan, but it's something that we really feel in our heart. We feel that the people have been forgotten. So our administration, we will always put the best interests of the people first. Our campaign is one of vision, hope, and experience. What is the vision? I believe a leader must have a grand vision. And the vision is the same vision I had in 2014 when I ran, which is that we are the economic powerhouse. We are the economic leader in the entire Caribbean. We are the #1 place to live, work, and visit in the Caribbean. We know we can achieve it together. We can achieve great things. It's a grand vision, but we can achieve it together. The hope is that we will have a better tomorrow for us as Virgin Islanders. My son James turned 26 yesterday. He's earning a master's degree in business and science. That's the hope I have, that we will have our children return home after they're educated. They want a better Virgin Islands to return to. We want to raise our children in a better place, our senior citizens to have better health care. And I can go on, and we'll address it later. And we have the experience between Dwight and I, as many of you know, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for over 25 years. I was a judge for 6.5 years. I know every branch of government. I was the Attorney General for a period of time. I know the legislature because I'm a lawyer. I know all about laws, constitutionality, and of course, I served as a judge in the judiciary for 6.5 years. But we're willing to bring all our experience, all our knowledge to work for the people of the Virgin Islands, putting you first, not self-service, but public service first. And I will allow Dwight to introduce himself very briefly.
Time's up.
Dwight Nicholson, thank you very much.
All right. Before we go on, we're going to ask the audience, particularly those of you in the back, ladies and gentlemen in the back, you need to be quiet, show some respect, so the audience can indeed hear the candidates, and the candidates can think about their responses. Okay? Mosler Fonseca.
Okay, I'm Warren Mosler, and I know you're here to hear my ideas. There's no time, I'm going to get right into it. I was in St. Red Hook today, and I met two of our Whit O'Brien consultants, and I started talking to them about financing. Problem, we get $100 million of funds available, but we need to put up $10 million of matching funds, and we don't have it. So I say to him, what we can do is take a look at that $100 million. Maybe $70 million will be spent on salaries. Those people will be paying maybe $20 million in income taxes. Those income taxes will pay for the matching funds. How do you connect the two? You go to a bank. You can borrow the $10 million for the matching funds, okay, and you can secure it with a lien on the income taxes that come back as the money is spent. I'm now going to turn you over to Ray for the formal introduction.
Buenas noches, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Ray Fonseca, nacido en San Tomás. I'm pleased to be here today with our honored colleagues, our governor, and all the other esteemed folks at the head table. You know, I'm one of those guys that was a straight A student through high school, you know, got a full scholarship, came back and contributed to the Virgin Islands. You know, I've held positions. I used to be the CEO of the Virgin Islands Housing Authority. So I'm one of those guys who, in the government, salary was more than the sitting governor. I also was the chief of staff for the Commissioner of Health. You know, I never dreamed that I would become a politician. But, you know, I was over here in St. Croix after the hurricane. I was doing the repairs in Kmart Sunshine, also the Sears, and also Kmart Sunny Isles, and I met Warren Mosler. And Mosler is the only person that has experience managing billions responsibly.
Thank you. Matt Potter.
Good evening to all. I'm glad to be here. First of all, let me say I honestly believe that all the individuals that are putting themselves up to run for governor and lieutenant governor, I sincerely believe that they are sincere in wanting to do good for this community. But guess what? I don't think for all of them the time is right. The time is right. The time is right now for this territory to keep Governor Mapp and myself hands on the controls. That is for sure. That is for sure. I have worked with Governor Mapp now for almost 4 years. And from day one, people attempted to indicate that we would not have gotten along. Well, let me say clearly, and there for everyone to see, we have gotten along extremely well. We have an extremely good working relationship, one that is based on mutual respect and understanding and the realization that we are both competent individuals who will continue to push on behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands. You can clearly see, if you want to, all of the progress that has been made since 2015 when we have gotten into office. You can clearly see that progress. The governor has to be given the full respect that he deserves for being able to use the relationships that he has built over the years to bring the billions of dollars here to the territory after the two devastating storms.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Roach.
Good evening, St. Croix. Good evening, Virgin Islands. First, I would like to thank the SIU for allowing us this opportunity to participate once more again. And for the first time, you can see every single candidate running for lieutenant governor and governor on the stage. Some of us have been at this for quite some time. Some of them have run 2, 3 times. Some of them have run 1 time, and some of them have run even more than that. You know these people. You've heard them. You've listened to them on the radios. You've looked at their websites. But tonight, we're going to have to give you answers in 2 minutes, which is sometimes impossible. But what you have to evaluate is, are these candidates answering the questions? Are they building back a Virgin Islands that is going to be bright and brilliant? Or are they building back the same mess that we had before the hurricanes came? You got to think about, are they real solutions to our problems? Creativity, or just a regurgitation of political promises that are overstated and under-delivered? People up here are running against their record and what they promised 4 years ago. 1,000 jobs in a year, brand new roads, a healthcare system that works, an education system that actually is worth the diplomas that they're written on. My name is Albert Bryan, and this is Tregenza Roach. We want you to change course right now for a better Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Donna Hansen.
Yes, good evening. I'd like to first and foremost thank the SIU for hosting this event. I think this is the true definition of democracy, for us to be able to establish a discourse here among each other. And of course, each and every one of you that came out here this evening came here with the purpose of evaluating the candidates. And you know, when I think of labor, the SIU, I think of labor. And I wanted to pay the respect even to the WAPA workers that was there on the line today, you know, fighting for fair wages, because they have in fact been disenfranchised and they need to be recognized for their plight. They have a friendship in the team of Donna Stork Hansen, number 2 on the ballot. You know, there's an old saying, a person's valuable contribution makes everything. It means everything. And we could talk about the failures of others, but you know, there's something that we have learned in education from our educators. They say if at first you don't succeed, you try again. And if you don't succeed, you try again. Because guess what? That is the true definition of Virgin Islanders. We're resilient. And when they knock us down, we get back up. We've been knocked down by 2 Category 5 hurricanes. What did we do? We got back up. So if anyone's going to sit here on this platform and say that you should not be knocked down and stay down, then that tells me, brother, you're not ready. The team of Donna Stork Hansen have a track record. That track record is established. If we want to be truthful here this evening, if we want to be truthful, go back and reflect on the records of Donna Stork and Hansen. When Senator Hansen was elected to office, what was the first thing that she did? Increase the minimum pay for government workers who have been struggling for years on salaries below. What did Adler Fonsi Donna Stork do when he was elected to office? Increase that amount to $20,000 a year. And if I had my way, we talk about living wages, it would have been $25,000 a year. And that's what the team of Donna Stork Hansen is going to propose for the hard-working people at the Virgin Islands.
Thank
and
you.
I want the WAPA employees
Thank
to know
you.
we are
Thank
with you.
you.
Thank you.
Smith Frederick.
Good evening.
I am Molito A. Smith Jr., number 6 on the ballot November 6th, with Mr. Hubert Lorenzo Frederick as Lieutenant Governor, running as independent. Let's cut through all this stuff that we go through right now. We know for a fact that things are not good. At one point, there was a state of the territory that said, we're living in a tale of two cities. So we have to decide right now which of those two cities they are. We know that things are not good. We also know that the need for competence, the need for individuals with a record, and the need for a commissioner of insurance who has background and certifications and experience in insurance is what we need now. $1.8 billion of damages. Insurance companies getting ready to leave the territory. A healthcare system that is fragmented and for many of us has failed. This is what I want you to remember. After Irma and Maria, I was at the hospital in St. Thomas and watched our residents go on military planes, many never to return. We need to think about the human toll, and we need to cut through all that other stuff to impress you and talk about the truth. Now, in terms of labor, I'm married to the president of the Steelworkers Supervisory Union. I've been involved with labor from the time I came home in 1992. I served as a hearing officer. I'm a trained arbitrator. But most importantly, the issue is that we have to develop a culture that respects workers. We could all tout, but we need a culture that respects our workers. In every agency, it's very clear that workers are under duress. Time. Thank you. Now, before we get to the first question, it's important for the panelists or the candidates to please respect the time. When your 2 minutes is called, that's time to put on the mic or pass the mic, okay? All right, first question to the Millen Young Bangor team. More than a year ago, Hurricanes Irma and Maria left their destructive mark throughout the territory. Many union members still report to work sites that are compromised, without air conditioning in some cases, or with mold or other environmental issues. What do you propose to do to speed up the recovery of workplace conditions and make them better throughout the territory? 2 minutes.
First and foremost, I am so sorry that you're going through that. We are as well at the legislature dealing with mold issues. My office is full of mold, so I know exactly what you're going through. It is a matter of management. So it's not really a senatorial or a gubernatorial matter. It's really a matter of management on the scene. You have supervisors who have budgets that should take out of their budgets monies to pay for mold remediation. If they don't do it, then they are themselves putting themselves at risk. You know, when I hear these types of complaints, I really wonder, you know, what is it about directors? Because we have to bring it down to that level. Directors who are not using the monies budgeted for their agencies to take care of these issues. Many times unions are talking about monies, but it's also about quality of life issues. And so I would definitely really hold the directors responsible. And I'd like to have my running mate add to that.
As someone who knows a lot about mold rectification, certified mold rectification, I have these concerns that you have. But like my partner says, it's up to the director of that department who's in charge to really take care of that issue. What we would do as the government team would be to enforce that those directors take charge and be number one. Because one of the things that our team is going to do is educate our leaders in our sector as far as commissioners and stuff to let them know what is the procedures and steps that needs to be required. So one of the things that we are going to do is definitely push forward to ensure that we proper education to the directors and commissioners that we have on the site. Thank you.
Diasi Cofield Nicholson.
Yes, Soraya Diassi-Kofelt and Dwight Nicholson, number 3 on the ballot. We are being told almost on a weekly basis that all this money is coming in from the federal government. Where is the financial accountability? Where is the transparency? The federal government required a website be established so that this administration would account for the money that's coming in. Go to the website, the PFA website. You'll see just lump sum figures stated. How do we know that those lump sum figures are correct? There is no breakdown given to us. What is being done with the money? We continue to go through our roads that are full of potholes. We continue to suffer from hospitals that don't really provide the medical care that we need. Look at our schools, and you have the teachers having to work in the schools. You have WAPA employees protesting. What is happening with the money? And until we deal with this issue of corruption and following where the money is and the accountability for that money, we will never change. And you will hear us, both Dwight and I, talk about financial accountability and transparency. Virgin Islands law requires that we have open records for we, the people, to know what is being done with the money. Virgin Islands law requires sunshine meetings, meaning what? Government open meetings. Virgin Islands law requires a government transparency website that we see, we the people see budgets for every single department and what is being done with the money. Are those being enforced? Under our administration, they will be enforced. We will stand with honesty and integrity before you. We will account for all the money that's being used. We will go in and we will audit to make sure what is being done with the money, because if money's wasted, abused, and misused, it'll just leak through the holes and will not be able to be used for the benefit of our workers, our people. And we want to ensure that the money is properly accounted for and used. Thank you.
Mosler Fonseca.
Yes, good evening, folks. Hello, testing. Yes, like I mentioned before, I'm also a certified mold specialist. I'm also asbestos certified and lead-based paint certified. I was here in St. Croix, like I mentioned, in Sunny Isles, in Kmart, doing the mold remediation work. I was in the Sears doing the mold remediation. We were down down west in this Kmart doing the mold remediation work. You know, I've been in Puerto Rico also. You know, I'm one of those guys been all around the Virgin Islands and in Puerto Rico doing this work, you know, helping the people recover. You know, basically, it takes funding to get this work done. It takes funding. It's very important. So I'll turn it over to the boss here.
Got about a minute, but look, I can't wait to get off this podium and go to work to bring in the hundreds of millions of dollars that we need. I can do this. I'm going to give you a little bit of razzle-dazzle here just for some examples. We have rum cover-over bonds, about, I think it's $1.2 billion, that could be refinanced. Now, interest rates have gone up a little bit while we're waiting for this to happen, but it's still there. The reason we can do this is the problem is that the bondholders won't buy our bonds because they're afraid they won't get the money. But the money comes from the federal government. So in theory, there's no risk to the bondholder. Everything's fine. But the markets tell you they're very worried about this and are willing to sell at a discount. If the federal government bought out the bondholders and became the lender, then the money would go from the federal government to the federal government. And they have no risk. This gives the federal government an opportunity to help us out in a way that doesn't.
Mark Potter.
Thank you. Just for point of reference, could you repeat the question, Attorney Williams?
More than a year. It's been more than a year since Hurricane Irma and Maria left their destructive mark throughout the territory. Many union members still report to work sites that are compromised, without air conditioning in some cases, or with mold or other environmental issues. What can be done to speed up the recovery of workplace conditions and make them better across the territory?
Thank you. First, what we're doing is finding and bringing in temporary office facilities. You will see more modular systems coming in to replace office systems. The ultimate goal, and what we are going to achieve, is simple. Knock the buildings down and build new modern facilities, and the federal government is giving us the money to do that. One of the candidates says he can't wait to get off the stage to go and bring in billions of dollars. Let me let you know, I am bringing in billions of dollars. We talk about roads. $430 million have been approved for road projects in the territory. The first $30 million has been released. We are going to reconstruct and provide offices for human services on both islands, rebuild new Vitima headquarters on all 3 islands, new police stations, fire stations, schools, and yes, hospitals and government offices. DPNR is going to be out of the airport in St. Thomas and into their own new facility that the U.S. government is working with us on providing. It's about building relationships, building trust with your national partners in the Congress and in the Trump administration, and facilitating the dollars into the territory, and then making sure that the job is being done and the reconstruction and rebirth of the territory takes place.
And just to add a little piece that goes directly to the question, a couple days ago, we got indication from one of the schools down West Henderson, and there was mold in Henderson, and we know some teachers were complaining about mold in schools. So I called the Commissioner of Education and their people and insist that they begin and do some serious mold testing on every school, to make sure that it's cleared.
Brian Roach.
Good evening, everyone. Clearly, we are living and working in mold-infested buildings. The governor didn't make them mold-infested. They were mold-infested before he came. And to add insult to injury, testing, okay. I've been through the hurricanes, so power ain't gonna trouble me. But, so the governor is not responsible, but to add insult to injury, we are paying rent for some of these mold-infested buildings. What the governor did say is he wants to take immediately $10 million from the Lime Tree Agreement to build a hotel in St. Thomas. I would take that $10 million, we would take that $10 million and retrofit some of these government properties that are sitting idle, address the mold in those buildings, then we would let the same hotel use the Hotel Development Act that it proposed to build its hotel under, and our government workers who inhabit buildings like the Lieutenant Governor's office in St. Thomas that have 50% of the ceiling tiles in the Record of Deeds office missing, then people could be more productive and safe in their work environment and generate more revenues for the government of the Virgin Islands, and the hotel could use the Hotel Development Act to build a hotel with its own revenues. Thank you.
Donester Hanson.
Yes, Donester Hanson, number 2 on the ballot. As the author of the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, the government is one of the biggest violators. Let's first establish that. And you know, you would hear me often speak about holding commissioners and head of different departments and agencies to a different standard. How are you going to know what problems to address if you can't highlight what the problems are? There should have been an evaluation and an assessment of every government department headed by the head of property and procurement. That's first and foremost. Secondly, under the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts that I authored and Senator Hansen incidentally supported, there's millions of dollars available for the Virgin Islands to remediate mold and other issues or environmental issues that exist in government structures. I don't know what this administration been doing, but I know that the team of Dana Stork Hansen, when it comes to environmental issues, we are prepared to make working conditions acceptable for government employees, because your most valuable resource is your government employees. That's your most valuable resource. So the team of Dana Stork understand that we have to identify and tap the necessary resources to rebuild our infrastructure. And I don't see a priority list established by this administration. So what we would like to do is to do an assessment of the government, all government agencies and departments, to identify the problems, to hold our commissioners to a different standard, that they understand what is the organization biography, that under that organization biography, that we establish a SWOT, identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that we hold our head of departments to a higher standard, and they understand that above all, let's rectify the problems that exist that have disenfranchised so many government workers. Health should be a priority. Thank you.
Smith Frederick.
When a disaster hits and you just walk away and you return months later and then you decide to put people in these spaces, you must get mold and you must get unhealthy working conditions. So when we talk about moving into new buildings and knocking them down, there should be some accountability as to how they became so derelict in the first place. Government House St. Thomas, prime example. A disaster hit, people just walked away, mold took over. If you look at most of the schools on St. Croix, no one can argue the fact that we need new schools and money will come, but the issue is about performance. It's about performance. So if we trust the performance after the storm as it related to the condition of these buildings, as it related to people working in these buildings, then we will trust 4 years from now, or in the next term under this group, that things will continue the same. The fact of the matter is that performance, accountability, and actually doing the work that we've been hired or elected to do is most important. We're talking about the future, but no one's talking about how we got here. We got here because of negligence. The mold issue is negligence. I know this because as Deputy Commissioner of Human Services, as an emergency manager for 20 years, one of the first things you do is exercise your plan, go in and evaluate. And once you evaluate, you take action. So, a human services building in St. Thomas. Roof went, windows got compromised, mold came in, moisture came in, and months later, no one remediated. Now we're talking about knocking down the building. But the fact of the matter is, performance and accountability must matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take 30 seconds for some technical changes. Hello? Next question, we'll start with the
Testing, yes.
Cofield Nicholson team. When Hovensa closed, we lost about 2,000 jobs in the Virgin Islands. The Lime Tree deal is projected to grow to about 500 permanent jobs. The question is, did the Virgin Islands get enough out of the Lime Tree deal? Why or why not?
I don't believe so. And as a lawyer, I read the agreement, and I had big questions about many portions of it. I think the legislature rushed through it. The governor put them under a lot of pressure, just like the prior governor did with the Diageo deal. The legislature succumbed to the pressure instead of taking the time and studying the agreement. The legislature, I understand, asked their legal counsel for an opinion. The legal counsel gave a written opinion. They didn't heed it. I understand the legislature went out and hired an expert. The expert gave an opinion which raised many issues. Again, the legislature did not heed those issues. If you hire experts, if you hire a lawyer, at least listen to what the lawyer has to say. And as a trained lawyer, I would appreciate that. We just cannot be giving away the Virgin Islands, and that's what we did with the Diageo deal, and I believe we will see that soon we have done that with this Lime Tree Bay deal. Even the agreement itself says that no fewer than 80 jobs. No fewer than 80 jobs. So the governor is representing there's going to be hundreds and hundreds, up to thousands of jobs. But read the agreement, no fewer than 80 jobs. The agreement gives tax benefits not only to Lime Tree, but to all its customers. How many of you out here are small business owners? I am a small business owner. Dwight's family is a small business owner. Do we get tax breaks? No way. We're taxed and taxed and taxed and taxed. So why should they and their customers get tax breaks? Also, Lime Tree is supposed to donate money to UVI. Yes, for the technology program, but there's no commitment that they're going to hire our students once they graduate out of that program. I can tell you on and on, I had a lot of questions. I didn't say don't do it, but make the agreement better for the people of the Virgin Islands. You will have a governor who is a trained lawyer, a former judge, a small business owner will fight for you. And knowing the law, I will make sure that I'm up there in Congress or here fighting for you, making sure we get the best deal possible.
Time. Mosler, Fonseca.
So the last building I can remember that government knocked down was the ball field in Frederickstead. and now the kids have a $10 million pile of dirt sinking in the ground to play baseball on. But let's talk about Lime Tree. We had an agreement in 2015 that they were honoring. They had to start refining oil by 2020 or deconstruct the refinery. They were well on the way. They were going to pay full taxes. We were going to get projected $1 billion in revenues coming in after they started refining. And then something happened. Then all of a sudden we needed a new agreement. They were perfectly happy to refine oil immediately under the old agreement. Okay, so what happened? What happened was Lime Tree and the governor conspired to lie to the Senate, to deceive the Senate, okay, into believing. No, I'm going to run out of time. Into believing that it was the tax cuts at the end of the year that meant that we need to reduce their tax rate to keep them competitive. That was complete nonsense. A drop of 5.5% in the tax rate has nothing to do with the investment in it. So I'm looking at it, I say, what happened? What is the real story? The real story is the governor decided he wanted some upfront money. So he went to this Lime Tree for a payday loan and got $70 million, $30 million from the property sale, another $40 million. And in return, we lowered the taxes that Lime Tree had to pay by $400 million, and according to their numbers, and now you'll hear, oh, it's a good deal, we're getting $600. Yeah, we were supposed to get $1 billion. We left $400 million behind. Senator Roach exposed the fraud when he cross-examined Val Collins and pinned him in a corner and got him to admit they deceived the Senate into their vote. And yet, this is corruption, obvious corruption.
Time.
Who else is talking about it?
Time.
No one.
Matt Potter. Hello. We're not going to get through this if the audience continues to do that.
All right, first of all, reading is one thing, comprehension is another. Let the good judge know that there are 1,100 full-time workers at Lime Tree Bay facility today. They don't include the construction workers. 86% of them are Virgin Islanders. Now let me let Mr. Mosler know, just like you have your tax exemption certificate and you negotiate with the government on your terms and conditions, so other businesses that come to the Virgin Islands are free to negotiate their terms and conditions. And in the original agreement, when we said we would take 17% in a revenue sharing agreement on refined products, when the US Congress reduced the tax rate by 40%, I'm not going to revenue share with you higher than the taxes I would pay. I would just do like Hess and say, let me pay my taxes, and then for 28 years out of 32, pay none. In the 10 years that Lime Tree will refine, down with you. For the 10 years that Lime Tree will refine, the government, between the storage terminal facility and the refining operations on 200,000 barrels per day, will see a minimum of $775 million.
Brian Roach. Brian Roach.
Perception, Albert Bryan, perception is not fact. The fact still remains that there was no reason to open up the agreement we had. The governor just admitted that we opened up the agreement to reduce the amount of money that we were getting, not they were getting. Every single tax benefit that was guaranteed in the first agreement was done in the second agreement. There was no assessment of the land that we had to find out whether it was worth 30 million, 10 million, or 50 million. There was no reason for us to get a terminal sold for $200 million and an oil refinery for a $40 million loan. When you think about it, the reality of the situation is, Mr. Moser is right. It was a $70 million payday loan to win the election. But guess what? The loan company ran out of money. The reality of the situation, and the sad part of the situation, is that Mr. Mapp got $230 million for that refinery and then set aside one dime to make sure that our economy in St. Croix starts booming again. And that's the sad part. He got $90 million for that red mud that we have inhaled in profit and everywhere westward for 30 years that infested all of our systems in Strawberry and the surrounding areas during Hugo. And he did nothing for St. Croix's economy. As our economy continues to melt down, people get up here and say the economy is doing good. Then why do we have a state of emergency? Thank you.
Dinosaur Hansen. Dinosaur Hansen.
Greetings. I am Alicia Chucky Hansen, a team of Donna Stark Hansen, Funcy, Donna Stark, Chucky Hansen. The governor is probably dreaming because he said you must read and comprehend. What I read was that during the time that he gave the ArcLight deal, all these tax exemptions, every one that you could think on, to include even his license, business license, even the business license. During that same time, I have people in every team affected by what I'm going to say. They took away the tax exemption from the veterans. They took away the tax exemption from people with disability. They took away the tax exemptions from people that are elderly and cannot go for a second job to pay and keep their property. That's what happened. All the big numbers you're going to call out, let the experts, I'm a mold expert too. I'm a mold expert because I go to every department and there's mold. And people are getting sick over the mold. Let it be known that the ArcLight deal was in fact a deal. A deal for the administration. Where is the $70 million they were supposed to deposit immediately? They got all the benefit to include getting free land from the people and other land at $1,000 per acre. Where you going to buy that? Thank you.
Time. Smith Frederick.
Good evening, good evening. My name is Hubert Lorenzo Frederick, number 6 on the ballot with Melito Smith. I'm a banker, insurance broker, small business owner. From my perspective, I thought the deal lacked financial integrity. And this is coming from a banker. I've done multi-million-dollar deals. It's true what Mr. Mosler said. It is a financing deal, a payday loan, no question about it. There was no reason for us to take a deal like that. It was a deal, but it wasn't a good deal. It wasn't the best deal we could get. And here's why. The prior occupant of that space, Hess, was willing to give us a hospital because they're the biggest violator of our environment. And they were willing to make sure if they're going to pollute our environment, they're going to at least try to take care of us. This deal doesn't even address that. Just like the Diageo deal. Who took care of the black mold in Williams Delight? They decided to pull out and not store the rum here. So, from a business perspective, it might have been a good deal for them. But for us, the taxpayer, 15 tax exemption, we could have done a little better than that. And like Ms. Hanson said, where's the 70 million that was coming right away? So these are deals. I could respect the different teams out here cheering for their respective candidates. But as Virgin Islanders, none of this matters. None of this matters. Because we still have the same problem. We're broke. So, billions and billions, and we still broke.
Time. Melon Young, Bangor. Can you pass the mic up, please? Mr. Brian, what you want to do is keep one mic here to go down, and one mic will go down to the first. Oh. Go ahead.
Ready for me? Good evening, everyone. Once again, Jeanette Millen-Young, number 4 on the ballot with Edgar Bengoa. Some of my colleagues who voted for it are still here. Hi, Senator Viali. You know I still love you. But the legislative process is what it is. It's a deliberative process. And I kept hearing people say, you vote no, you vote against St. Croix. But that is not correct. One of the things that our attorneys inside council and outside council said was go slow. Even they didn't have enough time to study this deal. Why should I? I'm not a contract expert. So I'm listening to the experts and they're saying, not so fast. So I had to listen to many Crucians say, don't forget about our health and environmental concerns. I asked questions about that. I asked questions about the tax liabilities. And people get upset when I say it's a tax holiday. But if we got that deal, imagine how happy we would be. They got every type of tax exemption. But because I am a fair person, and because this ratification took place, what I do want to see is that the company succeeds. And so I will do everything in my power to ensure that it succeeds. But I will never forget that a lot of the things that were said on the record were not in the contract. You talked about how many jobs, and we're talking about, 1,300, but the contract only called for 80. When we talk about charitable contributions, we talk, we're giving millions, but the contract only called for like 500,000. Excuse me, who's at the mic right now? So basically what we have to say is that as senators, we have to read.
Thank you.
Thank you for the distractions. Thank you.
All right. Audience, please. It's now time for the audience to have a discourse. Miss? All right, next question to the Mosler Fonseca team to start the responses. What are your plans to address the health care needs of the territory, and what is the source of funds to build or refurbish our crumbling health care facilities?
Okay, so let me talk about the source of funds in 2 minutes. We have an advantage here because we get to keep our own income taxes, and let me explain quickly. If the hospital, for example, takes in $10 million of insurance to take care of patients and pays the $10 million to the employees, all the money that came in went out. The hospital has no money for Band-Aids, right? Wrong. When we pay employees $10 million, we might get $3 million back in income taxes. Okay? The cost to the hospital of employees is net. You pay them 10, you get 3 back for taxes. The government owns the hospital. The real cost is only 7. So there's $3 million left over for Band-Aids, WAPA bills, and everything else. However, we don't account for it that way. We say the hospital took in 10, paid out 10. The general fund gets 3 and spends it somewhere else. They're taking the hospital's money and spending it somewhere else. So number one, we have to account for these things properly. We have to realize that the taxes generated by the funds the hospital is taking in belong to the hospital and are part of the medical sector. Second, we have satellites around the hospital, radiation, that type of thing. These people make profits, large profits. Oh, well, let's bring it back into the hospital to capture the money. No. They make profits, they pay taxes, we get to keep their taxes. We need more of those things. We can bring these businesses in from all over and give them incentives to be here because we get to keep their taxes. Florida can't do that. They don't get to keep their taxes. We have a competitive advantage in bringing in these medical services to fund the medical sector and bring in the money we need. Now, in 2 minutes, there's only enough time to talk about the funding, and I hope I get through it. Thank you.
Bob Potter.
The uncompensated care at the hospitals on both islands are about $50 million a year. The MAP Potter administration has already signed off with FEMA and has been going through the pipeline 2 health facilities that last week we agreed upon. The Wang Louis Hospital will be more than $165 million for its demolition and reconstruction. The Charles Harwood Hospital facility, more than $50 million on the north side for demolition and reconstruction. The Kimmelman Cancer Center qualifies for demolition and reconstruction, as well as Myra Keaton facility on St. John, demolition, reconstruction, and we're finalizing the paperwork with the Schneider Regional Medical Center and their staff as late as yesterday. The monies that we're talking about that are coming into the system are about rebuilding and building anew these facilities. In this administration, we changed the qualification for Medicaid, moving the Medicaid enrollment from 23,000 to 41,000, and this jurisdiction is the first jurisdiction in the country that got the U.S. government to pay 100% of the cost of the Medicaid program for the next 24 months. We're working with our medical community to determine what the new facilities would look like, what they need, how to make sure they're modernized with the assistance with U.S. Department of HHS. We're going to work with our practitioners, the federal authorized health centers in the community to really have a more robust healthcare system that when people need basic medical care, the first thing they don't think of is I need to make reservations to fly out the territory, but they feel confident in using the public and private healthcare facilities and having those dollars continue to circulate in our economy. We have very good medical practitioners.
Time. Thank you. Brian Roach.
Thank you. One of the things about being in the legislature is you learn that you cannot do anything by yourself. And so the governor should admit that he didn't get this federal money by himself, and these Medicaid ideas are not his original ideas as well. The delegate to Congress, a team from the legislature, also went to Congress and lobbied for these monies. And these are the monies, as he said, that should rightfully be used to rebuild these facilities. All of them do not require demolition. In fact, the staff at the hospital in St. Thomas, they don't agree that it should be torn down, right? But we have to go forward. One of the pillars of improving the health of our Virgin Islanders lie in the medical school that the university proposed. They did it the wrong way. They had an idea in the beginning that they could become a branch campus of a known university. And they did not pursue that idea because some man came along and said he will give us $20 million, which he did not. I think we should return to that. We should use the facilities. The classroom building already built in St. Thomas and the simulation center is to be constructed on St. Croix. And if we create this medical school in our community and we support a cardiac center at Wang Louis and a cancer center at Schneider Hospital, we can create a medical community that people can come here to train, and we can also point it to medical tourism for our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean and elsewhere who could come here and utilize these services. So we have to go beyond this breakdown and build up of the same thing. This is a great opportunity to integrate a variety of facilities, and the ancillary industries that a medical school will attract will improve our economy in general and the health opportunities for our people. That's how we would approach the health solution.
Donister Hanson.
Well, first you must establish your accomplishments. The cardiac center that is quite often discussed was created by this team. So was the cancer center on St. Thomas. The $21 million that I went to Washington and turned around and brought back home. That's how it began. That's your foundation. As far as the Juan Luis Hospital and our hospitals, we first must stop the waste. You see that truck that's parked up there pumping doo-doo all day around the clock for above a year? That kind of money would have already actually piped the whole hospital. The whole hospital. What is the purpose of having a truck? Having our people go to the emergency room and have to step out in 2018 outdoor to do their business. While we go to good toilets in our home, condominiums, and other hotels. Stop it. Stop it. Our people deserve better. Number two, push. Number two.
Smith Frederick.
As the only healthcare executive on this panel, I know clearly that we have a fragmented health system. I serve as the executive director of the largest primary care facility in St. Thomas, the St. Thomas East End Medical Center Corporation, with the staff of about 100 and serving 8,000 patients a year. I know firsthand that we have a fragmented system. The community development block grant funding will deal with the buildings. But our issue isn't just the buildings. Our issue is how our healthcare delivery system is designed. There's too much politics in healthcare. We, as the Smith-Frederick administration, would move the governance of the hospitals from its current political boards under the University of the Virgin Islands. We would create a university system of hospitals by investing in the medical school and investing in medical tourism. The Brian Roach team's approach is great, but it sounds a lot like ours. The fact of the matter is that we could talk and we could talk and we could talk, but performance and expertise and the ability to get it done is what really matters. Since we have been in the healthcare space, we've expanded mental health, We've expanded oral care. We work closely with the Frederickson Health Center here in St. Croix to make sure that our people get health care. Financing of health care is eminently serious because we have 30% of our population without health insurance. So when we talk about uncompensated care, we can only do that, address that seriously by addressing our reimbursements and addressing the fact that too many of our people lack confidence in our health care and take the money away. Thank you.
Thank you. Melon Young, Bangor.
No, thank you very much for the question. I want you to know that after the hurricanes, Irma and Maria, I was in Puerto Rico because I wanted to see how the federal officials and the local officials were getting along and exchanging information and working together because that wasn't happening here. I got a call from DC asking me to come up to DC with some colleagues from Puerto Rico, and our doors were opened by the congressional leaders, the majority leader of the Senate, minority leader of the Senate, and many of the other leaders. And they wanted to hear from their local counterparts exactly what the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico needed. So we were in a position where a lot of times people said, but they're only calling Puerto Rico's name, but guess what? They really cared about the Virgin Islands. And at that point, they were trying to figure out how much money to award to both Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And I was at the table for that. So a lot of times we hear, oh, I did this by myself. Well, no. It's not a one-man or one-woman show. Regarding the health care here, we basically have to look at the structure of health, the structure of education, and many of these government agencies have to be revisited. Right now, we spend too much money in redundancy. Well, we have the St. Thomas Hospital, Roy Schneider. We have the JFL here in St. Croix, and we have Myra Keating in St. John. But we have redundant things that could be taken care of and save money that way. We also got the health insurance package that the legislature approved the other day, just this past week. And the monies went down, right? The policyholders, the Virgin Islands government is a sponsor, and so the employees also paid less. And why did that happen? Because healthcare was prominent, and wellness programs were prominent. And that's what we need to do. We need to be a healthier community so that we can spend less on healthcare. We also need to expand the services, like cosmetic surgery, etc.
Time, thank you.
I heard you, thank you.
Diasi Cofield Nicholson.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Dwight Nicholson, and I'm running with Soraya, number 3 on the ballot. Now, there are such a multi-level problems that are happening with the hospital. And it's not just something that happened because of the hurricanes. The hospital roof leaked before the hurricanes. After the hurricanes, there's still a leak. Okay? There's basic maintenance structures that if you don't clean your house, what's going to happen? Okay? Things are going to build up. Mold will build up. These are simple things that need to be done. Proper maintenance contract needs to be done when you're cleaning, not just the floors, but you have to have a contract for the air conditioning ducts to make sure everything is clean. Problems with the billing. What is happening is that we don't have people who are competent in proper billing procedures. So basically what happens? They have a difference between inpatient and outpatient clients. Inpatient is very scrutinized by Medicare. If the doctor should happen to have some kind of examination or some kind of scan that is different from what the patient admitted, basically Medicare will pay 0. That is one of the big problems with the hospital. They need to be able to correct their accounting, their financing within the government, within the hospital. Now, these are different things that need to be itemized, like throughout every department, Department of Education, Department of Energy, and the hospital. You need to be able to itemize with transparency, have an accountability for everything that is happening. Not just assign a contract to a company, but know what that company is going to be doing with that money. I want to know all the way down to the pen that's being purchased with that money. We need to have the accountability.
Time.
and our team will be transparent. Thank you.
Next question, we begin with the MAP Potter team. Did the Young administration reduce government employee salaries by 8% for 2 years? A decision which the Third Circuit Court of Appeal later found to be unconstitutional. What are your plans to restore the taken away 8% from government employees?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for starting with me on the question. I don't have a plan. I've already done it. We sent a bill to the legislature to fund the VAISA obligation under the Third Circuit Court. We funded it out of the new revenues from timeshares and alcohol and tobacco. We wanted the employees to begin to receive their 8% cut in 2019, which would be this fiscal year, and 2020, it's a $63 million obligation. The legislature, in its wisdom, decided that the payments should begin in fiscal year 2021, but revenues are going into the VAISA account, and the employees, everyone affected in or out of government, will be paid. Just to Senator Hansen's point on the monies and the condition of the hospital with the sewage system, we sent the bill down to provide the $3 or $4 million to fix that problem, and it is the legislature who reappropriated that money to establish new offices in Christiansted. So we did what we were supposed to do, and now we will simply rebuild. We know that now we will rebuild the structures. It's very easy to sit up here and say that people are not competent, and doctors are not competent, and medical billing people are not competent. You should know the hospitals are on a fee-based schedule, St. Thomas 1989, St. Croix 1991. They're on those old fee-based schedules by CMS because the hospitals are half empty, and CMS will not upgrade the fee-based schedules until we right-size the hospitals, and then they will include all of the costs. So it affects the monies from the insurance, it affects the money payments from Medicare and Medicare, and that's why we're using the opportunity in the disaster to rebuild the healthcare system, do mental health facilities, do more robust cardiac care, deal with the issue of diabetes in the community, and have real modernized and efficient dialysis centers by the monies that we will use to rebuild the system.
Brian Roach.
I mean, come on now, right? I mean, we up here, what else are we going to say? Yes, we're going to pay back the 8%. We will, this team will follow the law. The difference is, after 4 years in office, he still have a plan. When you do 4 years, you can't keep talk about the things that you're going to do. You have to talk about the things that you've done. When you buy 4 mango, right, a dollar mango, and you only get 1, you want change. We only get half a year, half the mango. So we want our change. Real change, change costs now. The reality of the situation is that we like to talk about the government in blocks. He just told you the unfunded mandate for the hospitals is $50 million. We owe $250 million in retro wages. We owe $33 million to WAPA. We owe over $80 million to other vendors. The Virgin Islands is broke. Don't let people come up here and tell you ignorance and clap. We have not honored contracts throughout the years, and now we have a government and a governor that is continuously indebting the Virgin Islands to bills you guys know that they cannot pay. We are going to work on the promises that were made. We are going to work on the contracts that were made, and we're going to honor those. But the reality is, there's a tough road ahead in the Virgin Islands. When the Brian Roach team writes a check, you're certainly going to be able to cash it. We are continuously making government debt to get re-election. And by January, they renege on everything. They take everything back and tell you that the government is broke. Thank you.
Danister Hansen.
Danister Hansen, Number 2, on the voting machine. You know what starts bad, ends bad. And the reason I'm saying that is because I heard a commitment during the course of the 2014 campaign about addressing this 8% cut. When this 8% cut was proposed, I went public and I indicated that it was unconstitutional, that you could not interfere with existing contracts from professors at the University of the Virgin Islands to contract federal employees, that you could not conduct or perform any tort interference. But it took place. I sit here, or I stand here on this rostrum, and I'm listening to the governor saying that they have addressed the issue of the 8%, because that's the question that was asked. But how could you say you address it if you're saying that it's going to be paid in 2019? Because then you didn't address it. Now that sounds, my description for that is duplicitous. Speaking out of both sides of the mouth. But you know, is a new, this paradigm that exists. And when I said what starts bad, ends bad. Senator Hansen and I have served in capacities, and I will define them. I was the liaison to the United States Congress. Senator Hansen was the liaison to the White House. We established friendship in both houses, that of the Congress and the House. And in establishing those friendships, when we returned home, you better believe that all those individuals that we interacted with could call us or refer to us by our first names. We have an administration now who filed claim to bring in millions of dollars to the Virgin Islands. And may I add, entitlements. Because anyone who served in the office, they had to provide us aid after a hurricane. Rest assured that under the Donnerstog-Hansen administration, that when we go and we meet with the president, he will know our respective positions and not refer to us as the president of the Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Smith Frederick.
The short answer is that we would work with the legislature to identify the money, because no one here has an identifiable funding source for the 8%. But let me go back to the court case. Let me go back to the source. My wife is the president of the Steel Workers Supervisory Union. And that union, along with another union, took the government to court. And because of that suit, we're talking about giving back the 8%. So the 8% is due. I would work with the legislature to identify the money. I'm not going to mama guy anyone that says it's coming from here or there, because none of us really know where it's going to come from. But I want to talk about healthcare, because it's not as simple as what was projected. We have a system where the Commissioner of Health doesn't talk to people. Let's be clear. The Commissioner of Health does not engage with the health providers. So when we talk about re-engaging this new health system, we have to start with the fact that a culture of change must come. And the change must include not fake change. Not fake change. The change must be real. The change must be real, and it starts with a culture of including everyone. So the short answer is yes, we would work with the legislature. This is an issue that affects everyone, and no governor is going to tell you that the money is going to come from X or Y, because the legislature has to appropriate it. Thank you.
Melon Young, Bangor. They need a mic.
Mr. Moderator, we're hearing about Mama Guy, Mama this, Mama that. Could you repeat the question, please?
Did the Young administration reduce government employee salaries by 8% for 2 years, which the Third Circuit Court of Appeals later found to be unconstitutional? What plans do you have to restore the 8%?
Thank you for the question, Janet Millen Young, along with Edgar Bengor, number 4 on the ballot. I started out by introducing myself as someone who has taken her time to develop legislation to expand our economy. And so through the various measures that I have sponsored throughout the years, whether it's expanding the marine tourism, which would bring back, I don't know, $80 million back to our coffers, sports tourism, agriculture, because we often talk about agriculture during campaigns, but I've lived it. And many of my measures actually are basically to raise funds for our government. We cannot pay down debt if we're not raising funds. And we cannot pay down debt when we go around flying around and having fun and biggest loser and all kind of craziness, and we're not paying our bills.
Audience, please.
When that came to the legislature in 2011, I was a freshman senator. And everybody had just come back or re-elected or come back from many years back. The DeYoung administration, as you stated, had done the 16% of retroactive, and about 84 was still left back. By the time we came in January, everybody said there was no money. I came up with legislation after that 8% cut to allow for the legislature to have real-time financial information. At that time, we couldn't tell. All we heard was 2,500 people were going home. And that, in my conscience, could not work. So saving jobs was very important to me. But as your governor, I would work hard to ensure that you have reestablished that money that belongs to you. As a senator and the governors, we too had the 8% cut. So it was a sacrifice for all of us. I thank you for the time.
Diasi Kofeld Nicholson.
Yes, good evening. I read the Third Circuit Court of Appeals decision. And Governor, I know I not only read it, but I fully comprehended it. And I want to let the people know some of the facts because I believe it's important for you to understand what happened. In October of 2010, what happened in November of 2010? Elections, right? So in October of 2010, here comes the DeYoung administration and negotiates these salary increases and benefits, knowing that the government was in serious financial crisis. And then what happened in 2011, right after the election? Sure, it goes to the legislature and says, sorry, we don't have the money, so we have to cut the employees' salaries by 8%, after just negotiating it the prior year. So what did the Third Circuit Court of Appeals say? That is unconstitutional. And why do I give you that information? Because what is happening now? You're negotiating contracts. You have to be very, very careful because we are suffering from severe financial crisis. Money is being promised to you. Dot your I's and cross your T's, unions, because next year, whatever contract is negotiated now, next year, when there's no money, what is going to be told to you? We're going to cut it. You're going to have to go to court, and you're going to have to fight it again. And this governor took the oath of office in January of 2015, when the case was still pending before the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Did he try to meet with the unions and negotiate anything? No. He waited until the decision came out in November 2016. And now, over almost 2 years later, he has a proposal, or he's going to arrange for the payment in 2019. We cannot agree to when you're going to get paid because of the dire financial circumstances. And you have to have a governor who's willing to work with the unions, with the employees in good faith, and deal fairly with you. So when a contract is negotiated and signed, you know that it will be lived up to.
Mosler Fonseca.
Yes, thank you once again. It's so nice to know that our governor has taken care of the 8% so we don't have to address it. Thank you, Governor. So what the Mosler Fonseca team is going to do, we're going to concentrate on putting all the employees on the correct grade and step so you can retire at your correct salary. So we're going to donate the $600 million rum cover over bond to the GERS. We're going to offer the government employees lump sum payments so that they can have the money if they so choose. In addition to that, we're going to comply with the law and we're going to pay you your income taxes come April 15. Currently, the law requires that the government deposit 10% of the income tax that's collected, so come April 15, you will get your income taxes. So the Mosler Fonseca team, we're going to bring in the money and we're going to be accountable for it, and I'll turn it over quickly to my boss to detail some more.
We got everybody talking about spending money that doesn't exist. The legislature routinely appropriates $200 million more than they have coming in taxes. It's called a structural deficit. We're $35 million behind on WAPA bills. We've got $150 million of accounts payable, and yet the next money that is coming in from some new tax is extra money. I don't think so. Okay, it has to go to operating expenses. There's no way around it unless the new revenues come in, which I can't possibly go over in the next 15 seconds. But let me finish with where we can get $50 million a year, and that was from refinancing the RUM cover-over bonds. And the other thing that does for us under my refinancing plan is we have $175 million of reserve funds for the current investors, which we will not need.
Time. We're going to go now to the closing statement. We're going to start with the Brian Roach team. 1 minute. Yes.
It don't start till I start talking, right?
1 minute a team.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we answered all these questions as we go through. The governor of the Virgin Islands is a tough job. I hope you listen tonight to who actually answered the questions. You know, when you talk up here, when you talk about money, you got to remember, in tax refunds alone, we owe $99 million. This team is dedicated to working with you. Even you guys over there in those dark blue shirts. We look forward in January to bringing you together, just like we did the Democratic team, and working towards a new Virgin Islands. You had 4 years. You gave us 6 months. We want our change back. We want our change, and we want to change course right now. Change course. Change course. Change course. Change course. Change course. Thank you for Virgin Islands for all of us.
Bannister Hanson. Audience, please show some respect to the panelists.
Dana Storg Hansen, number 2 on the ballot. You know, it's often said that it's not a person's duration in life that is most important, but a person's valuable contribution to life that truly counts. I speak of contributions because as I hear candidates on this platform reference the 10% set aside, not one of them would acknowledge that it was Adler Fonsi Dana Storg that drafted the legislation and shepherded through the Senate and made sure that it was in place. And that's why today it's Adler Fonsi Dana Storg that stood up and took the government to court. I didn't care who the governor was, because guess what? If I vouch and made a commitment to the people of the Virgin Islands that if I ever became an administrator or an elected official, that I would remember where I came from. And being part of the decision-making process and being afforded that opportunity to make a difference, I made a difference. It is no secret that I took the governor to court again for a consent agreement, a stipulation agreement that is in place to set aside 10%. He's going to respect the law. Thank you. Dana Storg Hansen. Push!
Smith-Frederick.
I would like to first of all thank the UIW for this forum. It's a little short because we're just getting warmed up. It's a little short, so next time let's get a little more time because this was good. I also like to thank all of you because of you, we were able to get a little energy. The Smith-Frederick team is number 6 on the ballot. Our website is www.sf2018.net. I invite you to check out our website. All of our bios and all of our information are there. The fact of the matter is that, we have the, I'm a yield to Mr. Frederick.
Hi. I want to thank you for the opportunity for us to come out and speak. I'm sorry I didn't get a lot of time to speak. But I'm glad the telephone reminded us why we're here. We're not here to listen to politicians tell you why they did this and passed that.
Time. Millen Young, Bengo.
You know what? I feel the love in this room, even though my shirts are not plentiful here, but I feel the love anyway. So thank you for your attention this evening. My name is Jeanette Millen, and I am number 4 on your ballot, along with Edgar Bengoa. Why I'm running for governor, the governor's position, is because I have the care, the level of compassion, and level of integrity that calls for such a position. I don't plan on picking and choosing what laws I'm going to follow. I am not going to choose what laws I'm going to follow. We're defined by our choices, and one of the very important choices was who I chose as my lieutenant governor candidate. Someone who is very hardworking, who you have chosen as one of your leaders. I picked him as the incoming chamber president of St. Croix, someone who has cared and dedicated almost a quarter of a century here in St. Croix fighting for you. So we will provide balance for the United States Virgin Islands as your leaders. Number 4 on your ballot.
Nicholson.
Thank you so much for being here. Soraya Diasi-Kofelt and Dwight Nicholson, number 3 on the ballot. We really appreciate the time that you put in your attention. And thank you to UIW and SIU for holding this. We just a couple of nights ago were in St. Thomas having a similar forum. As I mentioned in the beginning, our slogan is putting the people first. We have a very detailed plan called Putting the People First plan on our website. Tonight you just got sound bites. Please go to our website, sorayaforgovernor.com. Go to the area of vision. We break down every point. We are detail-oriented problem solvers. Dwight is an engineer for over 20 years. As I mentioned, a lawyer. I've been a lawyer, a judge, a small business owner, and a mother. I say I'm a mother of 2 sons and a caregiver to my late husband. I bring a lot of experience, and so does Dwight, and the love for the people in the community. We talk about change, and we don't want to use that word change. We talk about transformation, and we hope to transform the Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Mosler Fonseca.
Yes, I'm a father of 3 sons also. They do very well. Okay, the first thing the Mosler Fonseca team wanted to let everyone know is that we're not going to ask for post-dated letters of resignations of any of the MAP administration. That is not our management style. In addition to that, there are a lot of good ideas up here, so I'd like to congratulate all of the folks that are vying for the position of governor and lieutenant governor. Even the governor will be able to utilize him in the Mosler Fonseca administration.
So we're asking you to roll with lucky number 7 on November 6th. And on November 7th, you will see 6 slightly used limousines for sale on eBay. Thank you.
Bob Potter.
Thank you to the SIU and Map and Potter, run with 1. I want to just say we learned a few things tonight. We learned that Senator Millen voted for the 8% cut, and her and Senator Roach voted against paying you back the 8% after they voted to cut it. That's just the record. Excuse me. We know that Mr. Bryan took the Department of Labor with a fully functional, solvent unemployment compensation fund. The unemployment fund, when he left office, was insolvent and $79 million in debt. when you look at Osbert Potter and myself, in terms of leading this territory, we have the best experience, we're strong leaders, and we have the training and have demonstrated the ability to get the job done. Vote number 1 on November 6th. Thank you.
Hello. Guys, everybody say sit, please.